there's a line between being able to maintain some cultural identity, but also being a part of a larger community. So, do you have examples of where that might be a successful experience, or where that might be happening, where you still have that feeling like you have, let's say, in Southwest Detroit with the Mexican population, but still being able to assimilate to kind of a regional or a local?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I definitely think that some of our ethnic retail districts are examples. Now, Global Detroit has had nothing to do. Those are organic processes, and we want to build on that kind of success. But I live in Mexican Town. It's the only growing neighborhood in all of Detroit, and it's largely because of Hispanic immigration. I have a grocery store with wonderfully fresh produce and organic milk, which you can't buy anywhere else in the city of Detroit. I have banks, I have car washes, I have more taquerias and bakeries than probably in Birmingham or really all of Oakland County. And we have a new coffee shop. The park, Clark Park near my home, is frequented every day with little children and dogs and pets. And there's incredibly new vitality into this neighborhood that has happened because of a new ethnic community coming into. And so it is still very much the Hispanic community very much has embraced their culture, but at the same time have adapted their culture to the larger greater Detroit kind of cultural being. And as a result, we have a cultural tourism district where folks from around the region are coming because you can't get authentic Mexican food anywhere else but Southwest Detroit. So those kinds of relationships. But we spent a lot of time, I think, talking about, one of the things Global Detroit also focuses on is the immigrant population that we have in Detroit, in Metro Detroit. And a lot of folks think of unskilled labor coming in, and the reality is that's not the picture of metropolitan Detroit. In fact, if you are foreign born in southeastern Michigan, you're 150% more likely to have a college degree than if you were born in the state of Michigan. 37% of the foreign born in southeastern Michigan have college degrees compared to about 24% of the overall population. We went through during the Global Detroit process and looked at things like the number of patents that are generated, the number of new businesses that are created, the number of high-tech firms that are created, the number of what we call public venture-backed firms. These are venture capital firms that were supported by venture capital in their early days, but they succeeded to the point that they then could become public companies and be traded on the stock market, which is really just the elite and most successful of all the venture-backed companies. Time and time again in these statistics, if you look at Michigan and Southeast Michigan, foreign-born Michiganders and Detroiters outproduce the domestic-born population almost 4-to-1 across the board. So 25% of our high-tech firms over the last 15 years or so were started by foreign-born. About 25% of our international patents were done by immigrants to our region. So these are key drivers, and these are not should be looked at as zero-sum, that somehow these high-tech firms or these patents are replacing, in fact, high-tech firms that native Michiganders would create. There's a lot of evidence that, first of all, particularly in the patent field, that the more immigrants you have and the more patents that you're developing, the more the native-born population also produces. So if you look at demographic trends for like Silicon Valley, which is now over 25% foreign-born, if you look at it 30 years ago, where it was a much lower population, the rate of patent production for the domestic population was a lot lower. And it seems that there are synergies that are developed, that folks learn from each other. So there are cultural innovations that folks from Asia and Europe and Africa and Latin America bring to the discovery and scientific process that then feed off of the American business acumen and our kind of open culture and our kind of entrepreneurial spirit, and they feed off each other, making both populations that much more productive. In addition to that, patents and high-tech firms, these lead to businesses and economic activity that employ domestic-born populations. So the greatest example we have in this state is that we are lucky enough to have over $1 billion of investment from A123 Systems, which is the leading company in lithium battery technology. All the Black & Decker power tool batteries are done by the lithium batteries of A123 Systems, an MIT-based company that was founded. They received in stimulus funds and Obama alternative energy funds over $1 billion to pioneer the lithium battery development to power electric cars. And they came to Michigan to do that. And they're going to be hiring basically over 1,000 engineers to do that. This is potentially the future of our auto industry, is being done by A123 Systems. Well, A123 Systems is a completely immigrant company. It's a Taiwanese researcher from MIT, a Venezuelan businessman who found this researcher and said, I think the future is in battery technologies. And then the initial startup capital and the chairman of their board is Desh Deshpande, who's an Indian entrepreneur venture capitalist. So if we had not been able as a country to attract this kind of global talent, we would never have A123 Systems. This would be a German company or a Taiwanese company or a Latin American company or an Indian company that would be competing against America's future. And instead, it's a company, because of who the United States has been and continues to be in terms of being the global economic superpower, by having open process of immigration, we've been able to attract this international talent and then create these industries that will be here, that will produce probably tens of thousands of jobs for Michiganders. Those are the kinds of benefits that we've been able to document in the Global Detroit Study, and we think we ought to create strategies to have more of that in southeastern Michigan.
So who will the players be, Steve, in terms of seeing through, developing the strategies and then seeing them through and managing them through to the finish?
So that's what we're working on right now. We have 35 different advisory board members that sat through the study. The initial funding for the study was provided by the New Economy Initiative, which is a collaboration of 10 regional and national foundations. And frankly, that's where the money is to invest in our new economy and how to transform southeastern Michigan's economy. They started with the notion that maybe global connections, maybe immigration could be economic drivers, but let us investigate what kind of impacts immigration has had on southeastern Michigan, what kind of impacts foreign-born residents have made to the economy. Have they been a net drain or have they been a net asset? And in fact, Metro Detroit is unique. So one of the studies that we looked at is something from the Fiscal Policy Institute out of New York that looked at the 25 largest metropolitan areas. And they created what they call an immigrant economic contribution ratio. And they looked at census data and figured out the wages, the productivity, and the profits of immigrants, and then compared all the foreign-born of those kinds of economic production to the general population. And as a result, over the 25 metropolitan areas, the immigrant economic contribution ratio, the IECR they call it, is 1.02, suggesting that essentially immigrants produce as much as their general proportion in the population. But in metropolitan Detroit, we're the second highest IECR with 1.3, meaning that the immigrant population here produces 130% of the economic output as compared to their proportion of the general population. So Southeast Michigan is a very different story than what you see on CNN or the news of folks coming over who may not be documented, who may not have education. Instead, what we see in Southeast Michigan across the board, including those who don't have formal employment skills or don't have as much of an education, we see tremendous economic contribution that has really benefited the region.